Hello, it's Blossom Converses. I'll be discussing some of the causes of poverty in Britain. Let's get into it.
This has been Hamdi Mohammed's life for 2 years.
When I ask them, what's going on? What's wrong with me? And they think I'm nothing.
Right. So, initially, to give you an understanding of the universal credit conundrum, I'm going to explain a little bit the difference between the old style job seekers allowance and the new style universal credit. This lady will be on universal credit until she is given refugee status where she may choose to work. At this point, she is completely reliant on the government and her situation is not her fault. Now, you could get more money from job seekers allowance originally than you could get in employment. This encouraged lots of young people to stop trying for work at all. The new style was introduced over the course of 5 years, and it started being introduced in rural areas where people didn't feel so much of a pinch, whereas in urban areas where things are more expensive, this pinch became more pronounced. The idea of people being better in work seemed to be that the work wasn't paying more, but rather the universal credit was paying less than the old style benefit. A little problematic, I'll admit. This meant that some families felt it might actually be better to take the hit and accept less money in return for being able to be with their children at home, especially single-parent families. Makes sense, huh? Now, of course, if you live in a council house, it could be infested with mould, the roof might be caving in, there might be other issues, but the councils will be reluctant to handle it, and in some cases, in the case of this particular chap here, a private landlord just hasn't been able to get on top of things. The housing crisis is such that housing is so expensive, it's so expensive to rent, people are putting up with it. Black mould will affect their health, but they have nowhere to go.
And then the pandemic hit, and it's just, I lost my jobs. It was horrendous. It's been horrible. It's been really, really, really frustrating, and it's hard to keep a straight face and smile and wave at everybody because I don't want to smile. I don't want to wave. I just want to have the nice things that other people have.
In a country of plenty, it's very interesting what this lady says. It's very easy to be so aware of what you're missing. In families where only one parent works, like in this lady's case, the minimum wage can plunge the whole family into poverty. Unfortunately, I think she even lost her job. The pandemic has caused people of all income levels to actually be faced with poverty. And this may be something they've never faced before. These two problems lead to the government needing to make multiple plans in order to handle this particular crisis because it has so many different causations. And we see all over the place signs of geographical decline.
How are we supposed to live on £382? And that's why sometimes that we have to come to Blackpool Voice to get a food parcel because we're struggling.
It's help for people at breaking point. The couple are also unhappy with their living situation and have poor health.
The daughter was sat here. The ceiling actually dropped straight down, literally right onto the daughter in the sofa.
How does it make you feel to live in a house like this?
Unhappy. Don't want to be here. I don't like seeing my family unhappy. It scares me because I'm scared that one day the whole thing's going to fall and none of us are going to survive it.
To be clear, there are typical problems that the poor face in Britain, and one of these is particularly specific to people at this region of the Northern Hemisphere. They struggle to keep up with rent of £700 to £1,000 per month, which is average, struggling to heat water and their house in winter. We get some very harsh winters here. They struggle to afford almost £400 and even more every month for food, and that's for a family of 4. On top of that, interestingly enough, they also find that charities and councils, some communities even, are actually overwhelmed and cannot help them.
Couldn't get help from nowhere, rang the door, nothing, wouldn't give you advance payment, not their problem, go to the council, kind of the council have got now. There's just no help, No, if you lose your job and you go on universal credit, you're knackered.
As soon as I moved into Jaywick, I was put into a bubble. I had lost friends and I was labelled Jaywick scum. Most of the time I was scared to tell people that I lived in Jaywick because people always stereotyped it as a place of nothing, a place of crime and a place of drugs. I couldn't even put Jaywick on my CV because I was scared of being turned away.
This lady's case is very heartbreaking, and the other young lady who's just moved to Jaywick is in a very specific position as well. It's not just the fact of poverty, it's also the fact of where they are. Tourism can help the rich and starve the poor. Now, we don't want food deserts like London where everything's aimed at tourism. People need to have convenience stores and other things to support them, and they need to have places to work all year round.
So that their Christmas dinner looks exactly the same as my Christmas dinner. Most of all, we also give them £20. And the reason we give £20 is because we've given them all this food. If they can't afford electricity or gas, then it's completely wasted.
That people can't even afford the basics like food, heat and light is no surprise to Les.
We'll be taking beds to houses where children have not got a bed to sleep on. Children sleeping on the floor. In 2020, in Britain today, there are children sleeping on the floor. That's wrong.
He's absolutely right, but how common is it? 2.4 million people experienced destitution in 2019. That's up 54% in 2 years. 1 in 7 are in paid work. It's crazy. Now, 555,000 children experienced destitution in 2019. And that's up 52% since 2017, and that's according to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. Now, of course, rich countries cost a lot to live in. This is nothing new. You can barely survive on a household income of below £2,000 per month. And that's rent, living costs, electricity, food, etc. But not everyone here has $1 million company or corporation, or some enormous family wealth, or an incredible innovation that gets them by. Some are struggling to survive, but Britain's home.
I had nothing. Not a penny.
Nothing, literally. And the click of your fingers, it's gone. It's very scary. A very scary place to be, knowing that we've got to provide for these children and they need food, they need heat.
That word destitution, people do not think in Britain that there are families who've been in work who have fallen on such difficult times. But that has happened to you.
Yeah,
I mean, that is where you were.
You think, oh, I'm never going to be destitute. I'm never going to not be able to provide my family. And then just like that, in a click of fingers, we are.
Part of the family have had to stop working. They suddenly can't survive. They're so embarrassed. It's so sad. I've had people crying down the phone, absolutely mortified that they've had to ask for help.
It's funny, actually, that in this country and many other countries we correlate success with wealth, that someone is daft if they lose money or daft if they fall foul to a crisis. But actually, we all get hit by crises. We can all be affected by the unexpected. And actually, that's not unusual at all.
£67 for 6 weeks.
Yeah, they brought us clothes, a coat. I didn't have a coat. And I didn't go out. I used to sit here with a cardigan on. I don't bake. I don't cook anymore. And I'm absolutely paranoid about checking the electric.
You've got this tiny heater.
Yeah.
And that's all you've got.
That's all I've got.
I'm sure you can all guess, but that lady wasn't exactly our prime demographic for substance misuse like alcoholism or cigarette use. In fact, poverty is affecting people across Britain of all walks of life. People who used to be in 2 working parent families, single parents. People from all over England, from all different backgrounds, are being affected by this rise in poverty. But you see, the antidote to such terrible problems is a stronger community force, better understanding, and kinder, more compassionate hearts in the communities of Great Britain. And that can bring peace. I leave here the sources that I've used, the videos that I've watched, the documentaries that I've watched. The UN Probes UK Poverty is very interesting, but you also may want to look at the one at the bottom, which actually talks about exposing racism in the social housing sector. Some black people feel they've been affected, others feel that all poor people are being treated very badly and racism is just a small portion. Thank you for listening.